Welcome to Healthier Me, a show that highlights the health journey of everyday individuals in Saginaw who have chosen to take the steps to be well. I'm your host, Alexandria, and today I'm being joined by Jessica Larsen, marketing and communications guru at Grand Space Media, wife, and mother of 3. For years, Jessica has battled with her weight, which affected her quality of life. Today, she is opening up about her decision to persevere and lose more than 100 pounds. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. How are you today? How's your energy?
Yeah, my energy's great. It's a beautiful day. We finally have like a break from the humidity, so I'm feeling very good. Got outside this morning, so yeah, doing great.
I understand, and I love it too. I love it as well. Let me ask you, if someone is tuning in right now watching this video, why should they stick around and listen to your story?
Because it's a story. It's a journey. Like it's very, there's a lot of different details. There's a lot of things that have happened in my life that have gotten me to this point. So even if there's something that maybe they don't connect with, there might be something else in the next segment or the next section or the next question. So, I mean, I love listening to podcasts, and it's a listening journey, right? And so listen along. Maybe there's something in there that might help somebody out there.
Yes. Thank you for that. So I hope you all stick around and listen to this conversation, because I am so excited to be talking about your journey, your health journey. I've went through my own personal one, so I always love to hear about other people's stories. So I know that since you were about, 13 years old, you kind of struggled with being overweight and obese. What happened, or what did it take those years leading up to 13 that shifted your health?
I think as I think back now, obviously hindsight is 20/20. You don't see those things as you're going along, but then as you kind of look back, I can see some indicators that kind of crept in. So I think my grandmother died when I was 10 of lung cancer, and it was really hard on me. I was very close to her. I was very close relationship with her, and I could see what it did to my mother, and I could see emotionally what it was doing to me. I can see that now. I didn't see that when I was 10. But I did rely on food for comfort. It was something that brought me joy, comfort. I grew up in a family that was, our social gatherings were all about food. There was always a meal involved, and not necessarily the healthiest things, but it was comfort food that were on the table. And so food was something that I looked to for comfort. And so emotional eating was definitely something that triggered. There was also other things that were going on that I wasn't even aware of at the time. As I was getting into those years in, early into puberty, I was having irregular cycles, and I just thought that was normal. I didn't know there was anything wrong with me at the time. I just kind of was like, well, it is what it is. And I didn't like that part, but it was something that I kind of dealt with. And then I think, I was a little bit of my backstory. I was homeschooled until 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
And so when I finally entered public school setting in 5th grade, it was after my grandma had passed away. And all of a sudden, there was all these things around me that I hadn't even really dawned on me before. It was like, oh, I care what other people think about me. How I look, people notice that. Mm-hmm. And so those things, those words that are said to you start triggering things and eat away at your body image. And what do? You look for things that bring you comfort. And for me, it was food. And caring too much what people thought, what people thought of me, I was in this new school setting, learning how to be social in that way, and caring what people thought. And so it was like almost that desperation of I would do whatever it took. So I was more concerned about how I looked at that time and less about what I was putting in my body and how I was caring for it. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So emotional eating was kind of the culprit.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. There was a lot of other factors, but.
Mm-hmm. So was that an issue you think that maybe your family also carried as far as like emotional eating, or was just eating just the thing that your family did? I know you talked about like social gatherings and things like that. So did you see emotional eating as an issue maybe for your mom or siblings?
I don't, I think yes and no. I think we all kind of internalize things differently. We all have that like different aspect of our journey. I think, I have incredible parents. I love my parents. They're amazing influences on me. But I think that they struggled too. And, we do what we see. We are going to have those habits based on what we're learning. And I truly believe my parents did the absolute best that they could with the knowledge and resources that they had. But if you think about growing up in the 80s, 80s kids, like this was the emergence of convenience foods. It was like Pop-Tarts and sugary cereals and things that were easy to make and grab and do. And so what do they call it? The SAD diet, the standard American diet, like processed foods were emerging. And I think, my mom always had a garden growing up.
Oh, wow.
And she canned foods. And so we always had fruits and vegetables in the house. But we were a one-income family. I would say our needs were always met. I never had food insecurity, but we didn't have quality proteins in the house all the time. We didn't always have the quantity that we needed. And I mean, there was 4 to 5 kids in the house at any given time. So it was, there was a lot of mouths to feed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in a big family.
I did.
Okay. Where do you fall at in that?
I'm the second oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So many times, as we're talking about weight, many times when people are thinking about losing weight, they focus on this number. Like, I have to achieve a certain number. Was that important to you? Was a number in your head, even as a kid, I need to be this certain size?
I would say as a kid, no, because I didn't even know what a scale was.
Okay.
At that age. My mom kept her scale like in a cupboard.
Oh, wow.
And I think she would probably only take it out. I saw it, but I didn't really know what it was. But then as I became a teenager and people would talk about how much they weighed and what they looked like, and you start making those associations. I think weight is an indicator of health, right? We can kind of look at that as a way to measure our progress, and it's a great way to measure your progress. But the results are what we desire, but how we get there is what matters. Like, that's the thing that will be sustainable in our life. And so, yeah, you can go to all sorts of extremes to get that number to where you want it to be. But what are you looking like on the inside? What is it doing to you internally? And I think that's the part that you have to kind of disconnect. Use the scale as an indicator, not as like the end all be all. Like, I have to be at this weight. I would definitely say that that's something that I've learned over, decades, because it's taken that long to get to that point.
I completely agree. And thank you for that answer. So even when you were younger and you talk about emotional eating, what were you feeling at the time? Because we go to that food for comfort, but you don't feel really comfortable after eating. So what were your feelings after the emotional eating?
I mean, obviously, it fills you in a certain way. And then you start associating that feeling of being full with that. That's what brings the comfort, right? Yeah. And so I do think that emotional eating has its own idiosyncrasies that we don't even necessarily know all the connections for. And why do we do these things? We don't even always know the answer to that. We don't always know why we do what we do. And then we do it and we're like, why did I do that? Why did I just eat all of that? I won't say that I've had an eating disorder, but I will say I worked with a therapist for several months and uncovered some things that I, not necessarily having an eating disorder, but that I had disordered eating. And I dealt with food noise. I don't know if you've heard that term.
No, explain.
Okay, so food noise is kind of like that static in your mind of like, when are you going to eat again? What are you going to eat? How much are you going to eat? Am I eating the right thing? And so it's this constant static in your mind that it's always weighing on you. And people who deal with eating disorders can relate to that. If anorexia, bulimia, they deal with the food noise. And it wasn't until very recently when I decided to make some very big changes in my health that I realized just how much that food noise was affecting me every day.
I've never heard of that, but I love that explanation. And going back to you going to therapy, what made you decide to do that and take that step?
For me, it was realizing that the mental piece was really affecting my success, and helping me to get where I wanted to be. The physical part, I was losing control over no matter what I did. I mean, I was looking back at my health. I have like a journal that I keep. And I was looking back at all of the things that I had tried over, a 20-year period, and how none of it had worked. And I would never see actual results on and what I was trying to accomplish. And so I knew that the mental aspect I had to heal from the inside out. And that was going to take some mental changes, like some mindset changes. And it was also going to take some physical changes. So I started seeing a therapist who specializes in that. And she really helped me to uncover some of those reasons why I, really from way back when, some of the messaging that I was receiving about my body, the body image that I was carrying. I think that we have a choice about what voice we listen to. I have so many healthy influencers in my life that speak at me, but they don't know me. They don't know my circumstances. They don't know what I've been through. And until I started advocating for myself and learning my personal journey and what that needed to look like and the tools that I needed to have, I wasn't going to get anywhere.
Oh, that is so amazing. And thank you for, even seeing that within yourself to say, I'm going to go see someone. A lot of people don't make that decision, and you decided to do that. So kudos to you. Congratulations
Thank
to you. You brought up the fact about trying everything, right? We try every workout, every diet, and none of them seem to work. Do you think the therapy helped you in this, and where you are right now? Do you think that helped you to now lose the weight?
Absolutely. I did it. So another reason that I decided to see a therapist was part of the program that I was working with through Covenant's metabolic and bariatric program. And so that it was a requirement. I had to see a therapist just to kind of go through some psychological counseling. I definitely did way more than most people do. I saw her for 6 months leading up to my surgery, and then 3 or 4 months after, until it got to the point that I literally didn't know what we were going to talk about at the next session. It was like, she's like, that's okay. That's my job. And you graduated. She's like, that's what we like to see. I would like you to make it so that I don't have a job anymore. So it was definitely transformational for me. And I would not have been able to do it without that mental piece.
So it was through the bariatric program that you had to see a therapist.
Yes.
Do you think you would have done it without like that push through Covenant Healthcare? Was that ever a thought in your mind? Like, I want to go see a therapist.
I thought about it, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I had enough of a reason, until I started talking to someone and realizing just how it was all connected and how it really was going to make a difference in how I was able to heal from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. So was it a mindset shift or an energy shift for you?
Both. Definitely both. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what has shifted as far as your energy?
I think that when we finally take hold of that self-love piece, we can see ourselves for who we are and what we can become. And it really empowers us. It helps us to move forward. It helps us to know, like, where am I going from here and how am I going to get there? But if you have that terrible mindset of like, I can't do this. I've failed so many times. There's no possible way to get out of this. I feel helpless. I am no good to anyone. I can't possibly this can't possibly happen for me. And so if you're able to kind of change that mindset and say, I can do this. I am worth doing this and doing it for the right reasons. It's like for me, it wasn't always about that number on the scale. It was about, I wanted to be able to move and do the things I wanted to do without these roadblocks in my way. And I would get to some points when I was working up to different exercise programs and things like that, where I would just push and push and push because I loved moving my body and how it made me feel. But then I would get injured because of the weight that I carried.
Yep.
And having different injuries or weight-bearing issues that would prevent me from being able to do certain activities. And so kind of breaking through that and having the confidence to be able to do those things really made the difference.
So it sounds like when you were taking on the different approaches for your weight loss, working out, you became injured. And so I would assume that hindered you and stopped you.
Yes, absolutely. And as everyone knows, when you slow down or aren't able to move as much, what happens? The weight comes back on, and so it's like this vicious cycle. And
do you think the emotional eating started back up?
absolutely.
Did that happen again?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I think it never really goes away. That's the thing. Like, weight loss is not the end of the race, or the end of the journey. It's like, okay, you've lost this certain amount of weight. For me, it's over 100 pounds, but I'm not done. I have so many plans, there's so many things that I still want to do, and this is just helping me get there.
That's great. When you talk about making the decision, when we look at life, there's always the power of one decision. I'm actually watching a show just, off subject, but I'm watching a show and I'm like, man, it's just one decision can have this snowball effect. So you decided to take action for your life. You lost the weight. How has that influenced your family, your immediate family and your extended family?
Wow. So yeah, I would say the one decision that really made the pivotal point for me. I had done a bunch of research on what would be the next step for me, what was going to be the right choice. And I had gone down all of these paths. Like, you think about, you're in the woods and you see all these different paths before you. I had taken every single one and back around again. And so I was like, what? There's nothing else out there for me. And I got to the point where, I was feeling like I would do anything to lose the weight, right? And so that's kind of when that shift happened, and it was like, okay, what can you do? What is there still out there that you haven't done? For me, it was having bariatric surgery. So in April of 2023, no, let's back up just a little bit. In the summer of 2021. So in the summer of 2021, I decided, my mom and I actually together, we decided we were going to do bariatric surgery. She was having the Roux-en-Y procedure, and I was going to do the gastric sleeve. And we were going through all the processes. We had to do, blood work and different medical tests and all these things to see if we were good candidates for it. And we were both, we met with our surgeon. We decided, yes, this was a good fit for you. And then it got down to the point of the scope. You have to have a scope to check your stomach and all the things. And you have to have a pregnancy test prior to it. And I had to have this pregnancy test, so I do it, and I found out I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And this is huge because, and we can get into that more, but it was huge because I have 3 children. I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh, that's a huge age gap.
It is. The 2 older children, we had to use fertility treatment for because of my PCOS. And it was a very difficult journey. And that's something, like I said, we can get into that in a little bit, whatever. But I had 3 miscarriages after my son, and we had just kind of determined that we weren't going to have any more kids. It wasn't in our stars. And so we kind of had moved on with our life and made some decisions. I decided to go back to school as an adult and get my bachelor's degree. And then I had gone on this health journey, and I was doing all these things and trying to figure things out. I went through a protocol with a PCOS nutritionist, and I kind of healed myself from the inside out. All of my PCOS symptoms had subsided. I was feeling better than I had ever felt. I didn't lose any weight, but other indicators were telling me that my PCOS was doing better. Well, guess what else it did? It my fertility was
Oh, wow.
was back. And so anyway, so my mom came over to tell me that she had been approved for surgery and she was moving forward and she met all of the criteria. And I just started sobbing because I was like, yeah, I lost 10 pounds, but it's because I'm pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, what is happening? Like I was almost 40 and I found out I was having a baby and I didn't need fertility medication to get pregnant. And my husband and I were like, what are we going to do? Like, obviously we knew what we were going to do, but it was just like this huge shock and blessing in our life. But so anyway, it delayed everything. And so
that was in 21.
21.
Okay.
And so in June of 2022, I gave birth to our daughter, Violet, and she is a joy. Like she's an absolute joy, and we never knew we needed her in our family, right? Like we were so grateful. But it was very hard on my body. I had already been at my heaviest weight ever. I put on another 50 pounds in pregnancy. I was almost at 300 pounds, and I felt miserable. I physically was not at a level that I could do much. Mentally, obviously I was postpartum and lack of sleep with a newborn and trying to navigate all of this. And it was just really difficult on me. And so we made the decision to, I wanted to breastfeed my baby. And so I did, but then I stored up milk and decided to wean so that I could get back on track with my health journey. And it was the best decision I've ever made. For those that don't know, bariatric surgery is an amazing tool for not only PCOS, but for your metabolism. It completely resets your metabolism. Okay. And so I think there's this huge stigma around bariatric surgery, and I'm here to break it because it can do incredible things for the body. For so many years, people have called it bariatric surgery, and they're trying to change that and call it metabolic surgery, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
But most people know it by bariatric surgery, and there's several different forms, and it's not for everyone, and it is definitely not the easy way out. A lot of people will say, oh, she had surgery, it's the easy way. It is not. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. But again, it is the best decision I've ever made, and I will tell you that it reset my metabolism, it fast-tracked my health journey, and it finally allowed my body to heal in a way that it would release all the weight that I had been carrying for so many years. And we're talking about the physical weight and the mental weight of everything that I had done. And I finally, for the first time, had the confidence because it was working. What I had been trying to accomplish for so many years was working. I was actually getting results from what I was doing after years of doing as much as I possibly could, and nothing was changing.
Wow. That was a lot. That was so much.
That was a lot.
No, but not in a bad way. I mean, there's so much to it, even what you're talking about with the stigma on bariatric surgery. Some people do look at it like, oh, they cheated, so to speak. And it's like, no, if that's their option and that's what's best for them, that's what's going to work.
Exactly.
And it worked. You are so much better, it sounds like, mentally. I didn't know you before. I just, but it sounds like mentally it was just an amazing shift for you. So going back to how this influenced your family, so like your husband and your children, how did it change them by you making that decision?
So my husband is my biggest cheerleader. He is my best friend, and he has supported me no matter what through everything that we've been through. And we've been through a lot together. And so his perception of me has never changed. He's always looked at me like I was the most beautiful person in the room. And he continues to treat me like a queen. Like that's just who he is. And so I've always had 100% support from him no matter what decision I've made. And he continues to be that for me. He has supported me through all of it. He will never, like if I'm saying, I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to go do this thing or anything that I'm doing on this journey to improve my health and wellness, he's like, all right, babe, I got it. We always say we make a great team, right? That's our thing. And so we're always working together to make this work. And so I would say that for him, it has rubbed off in the way that he's been super supportive. He helps with meal prep. He helps with cooking. He helps with anytime I want to take a walk, he's just game. Like, he's ready. He's like, let's go. All right, let's go do this, So I think that his mentality has always been there and has always been willing. But I feel like finally we're kind of on that same page, And then I think as it goes for my children or our children, I have a tendency to not worry. I always worry so much about wanting to make sure we have this body positive home. Mm-hmm. I didn't want my kids to think that I felt like there was something wrong with me because I was always trying to change who I was. Yeah. I wanted them to know that this was an internal struggle for me, and they knew it. Like, my daughter's 18. She just graduated from high school, and she'll say things to me like, Mom, I've always thought that you were beautiful, but I just want you to know you look like so good. Like, you've just done, I'm so proud of you, So I think being able to bring your children in on the journey allows them to see that, like, yes, Mom struggles too. And Mom has things that she goes through. And, we all work together in our family as a team to kind of help each other. Mm-hmm. But now I think, I feel like it kind of humanized me a little bit as their mother to kind of let them see, like, yeah, Mom struggles too, and we got to help her sometimes. And so, I was recovering from my surgery when I was making multiple meals to try to keep everything balanced. We kind of just all work together, and my kids are great about helping at meal times and, setting a good example for their baby sister. And then we kind of have this thing where we say, okay, what can we add to this meal to make it more balanced? And so if we're going to do, we don't eliminate food groups in our house. That's not something that we do because I think everything in moderation is important. But you say, what could we add to this to make it a little more balanced in our family? So
I love that. I'm going to take some of these tips home with me. Like, I really love that. And that question, what am I going to add to make this more balanced? I love that question. And I love the fact that you're talking about your children and just going through this struggle or this journey, this health journey. One thing that I think about is how we talk to ourselves. And sometimes you'll hear individuals like, oh, I'm so fat, I'm this and that. And they'll say it right in front of their children. And then if the child starts to say that, we're like, no, don't say that. But it's like, you just said it to yourself. They're watching everything that you do.
It's true.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've been able to affirm yourself and also affirm your children in this journey and let them know, I'm human. I'm not Superwoman.
Exactly.
I'm your mom, but I'm not Superwoman.
I don't know. Sometimes they might call me the villain, though.
Yeah, I get it. I got a 10-year-old, so yeah, I'm still working on her.
Right.
So as you're going through this health journey, there are some people who aren't ready to make lifestyle changes. It sounded like your household was ready to change with you and adopt different maybe foods. But was there anybody else in your life who you had to kind of maybe kick to the curb? Like, okay, you're not changing the way you're eating. Or maybe they're like, I don't want to support this. Did you have to find a new support system?
I would say my family always has had a mentality of health. Like, we always strive to move together, to cook healthy meals together. That's something that we've always done. But for me, it was so hard because I felt like I was failing because it wasn't reflected in me. My children are both very healthy, or all three of them. They're healthy kids, like from the inside out, and they're beautiful beings. And I think that they have really internalized health as a journey and have incorporated it into their lives. Like, I really truly see that in them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there have been people in my life. I think, I'm not going to name any names by any means, but I think there have been people in my life who were, health advocates, or people who felt like they knew what was best for me. Mm-hmm. And really, they didn't. They didn't know me. They didn't know what I needed to be successful in this. They thought that what they knew was the best way. Like, their method was the way. And then, so I would try that, and I'd give it a good try. I'm not saying like I did a 6-week boot camp and I'm like, well, that didn't work. Mm-hmm. I'm talking like years. I would commit to someone else's mentality. Yeah. And it wasn't like a negative parting of ways, but it was like, okay, I'm sorry, but this is not working for me. I need to try something else. And that didn't always go great because they took it personally sometimes. Or there have been people in my life who, when I decided to have bariatric surgery, there was people who were not, they're like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Like, this is this is not going to go well. You're everybody gains the weight back, all these negative things about the journey. And for me, in some cases, they were relationships that I wanted to keep in my life. And so I've just learned how to navigate and how to communicate around that. Yeah. And in other ways, it was like, I was told a long time ago that if you put things into place in your life, then everything that's not supposed to be there will fall away, right? And so you surround yourself with positive people, you're going to have a positive outcome, And so right now, I've embraced a fitness community that I absolutely love. I've been there almost 2 years. I started before I lost the weight, actually. And they're an incredible group of people, all shapes and sizes, but you can just see it in their eyes. They're doing it for the right reasons. They have a healthy mentality. They have a positive outlook. And they understand moderation and the 80-20 rule, right? That we always talk about. Like 80% of the time, if you're doing what you should be doing, then when you have those 20% times, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But I've never been able to embrace that because I was always so worried. And I always had that food noise in my head telling me, yeah, you better not eat that because the scale's going to go up tomorrow, right? Yep. So.
Oh, the food noise. It sounds like... It makes me think about the movie Inside Out, too.
Right.
And the control panel. It's like, what's controlling your panel right now?
Exactly.
And sometimes it's the food. It can be anxiety. So,
And I can say, the food noise went away. And you start to notice, there's the scale, right? The scale's going down, and it's going down fast. But then all of those non-scale victories that people talk about started happening, and I started making note of things like I was moving better, I was feeling better, and the food noise was gone. Yeah. It wasn't there. I wasn't thinking about it all the time. And so that was a huge benefit for me overall.
Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest non-scale victory for you?
Wow. I mean, they come up all the time, but I would say probably the biggest non-scale victory is that food noise is gone. It really is. It was taking hold of my life. I felt like it was the only thing that was keeping me from being successful, right? And so it was constantly in my head, constantly talking to me. And then I think the other really big one for me is mobility and kind of removing. I can literally do anything I want to do. I can... I used to loathe spinning, hated it. I never wanted to be on a bike. If there was a bike in a class, I would avoid it because it just was not comfortable to me. Now I go every week. I love it. Yeah. And I can move and I can keep up and I'm never hindered. We were at the Be Ready race prep at the YMCA last week, and I was running with my husband. And he's like, babe, I'm having a hard time keeping up with you. And that has never happened. So that was really cool.
That is awesome. Oh, and I know her husband, Jeff, out there. If you're listening, thank you for tuning in.
He better tune in.
He is. He's a great guy. So that is so awesome. And congrats on that race as well.
Thanks.
Before we kind of close some things out, but I do want to ask about the PCOS, and that's polycystic ovary syndrome.
Correct.
Okay. I know you touched briefly on it, but talk about the symptoms you had before and how the symptoms have changed now, because there are some people who experience PCOS and it does affect your weight. It can affect the hair on your body and things like that. So talk about your symptoms.
Okay. So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Although it's extremely complex. It's something that even medical doctors have a hard time understanding and navigating. So I really, it started when I was 22. I went on the pill when I was first married because I was in college and we were still navigating education and all the things. And I went on the pill. And when I came off the pill, I started having these weird symptoms. I was having cysts on my ovaries. I was dealing with hirsutism, which is the hair that will grow in places that you don't want it to, like on your chin and on your lip. Yep. I would get these dark patches of skin, the infertility, which we would learn about a little bit later in my story. would creep in. And then I was also dealing with insulin resistance. That was my biggest issue. And so when I was 22, I had a cyst that ruptured on my right ovary and it just blew it out completely, to the point where I was only ovulating every other cycle because that one wasn't working.
Wow.
And my cycle was irregular. So we found out that there was only 4 times a year that I could get pregnant. So that was huge. Like trying to navigate that as, we were, young married couple. We wanted to have a big family, and that just was not happening. Mm-hmm. Like we spent 3 years trying to get pregnant with our first, and it was really hard. It was hard on my body. And I remember going into the doctor's office and they said, yeah, we want you, we're giving you a diagnosis of PCOS, and basically if you lose some weight, the symptoms will go away. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, how would you have me do that? Because I'm not exactly sure. It's not ever been something that was easy, because as a teenager even I had struggled with that. And so they said, we're going to put you on this medication, which was it was metformin, which is meant for diabetics, and it was meant to control the glucose in my blood. It made me so sick. I felt awful all the time. It made me crabby. The fertility medications I was on made me really irritable, and it was just awful. And so fast forward through cycles of fertility medication, we had Lily, and then they put me on a contraceptive again, because they wanted it to kind of, this particular one, they said, if we do this one, it will mean that when we take it out, it will mean that you should be able to get pregnant right away. So we got to that point, and guess what happened? I didn't get pregnant right away. So back to the fertility cycles. But guess what? I had put on weight in between babies. Oh, imagine that. Mm-hmm. So what do? I go to my medical doctor. And what do they say? Well, if you just lose some weight, your PCOS symptoms will go away or, lessen. Okay, so tell me, how would you have me do that? Because these are all the things that I've tried, and none of them have worked. So they put me back on metformin. Did I lose weight? Yeah, I lost, 15, 20 pounds each of those times. But the fertility medication that I was on, every time you do it, it increases your chances of ovarian cancer. So it's at this point, it's choose your poison, right? Like, what do you want? So I decided not to do any more of those rounds of medication, and we tried to have another baby, and I had a miscarriage, early term, and we tried again, and I had a miscarriage. And then I went through a process of extreme caloric deficit and extreme exercise, and I dropped 30 pounds and was able to get pregnant, and I had a miscarriage. So at that point, you can imagine how hard this was. It was a continual, like, you can't do this. Clearly, you can't do this. Look how many times that you failed to do this. And so it really chipped away at me. And we just made a decision that it was done. We were done. I couldn't go through it emotionally anymore, and my body had taken a huge toll on my body. And so we just had made the decision not to. So fast forward, I mentioned earlier that I went back to school as an adult to get my bachelor's degree, because while I was in college early on, we were going through fertility issues, and I decided to stop at that time. And I don't regret that decision. It was, we were focusing on our family and growing our family, and medically I just couldn't do both. And so, fast forward, I decided to go back to school, and I had started gaining some momentum with some research that I was doing about PCOS. And I found Claire Goodwin, who is a PCOS nutritionist, specifically dietitian, who specializes in PCOS. Amazing, right? Yeah. So I went through her PCOS protocol for 6 months. It was during COVID. I had just graduated from Northwood with my degree, and I started this protocol to try to see if I could figure this out. And we found out that my root causes dealt with high testosterone and insulin resistance based on the symptoms that I was having.
And no doctor could tell you that or told you that?
No. So based on her protocol, which I highly recommend, it really did. It healed. And I can tell you that because I got blood work done before and after. Checking my blood glucose levels. I literally was poking my finger every day. Yeah. I wasn't diabetic, but I was pre-diabetic. That, insulin resistance is a pre-diabetic condition. And so it took my cycle, which was 50 to 60 days, down to 29 days consistently. Wow. And that's how my fertility went away. My infertility issues went away. My cycle was on track. I was obviously ovulating again. My hirsutism went away. Like the hair growth had really subsided. I wasn't losing a ton of weight, but I wasn't gaining, and I wasn't carrying it in the ways that I was previously. And so obviously, we heard earlier that it led to a pregnancy, which was a miracle. It really was, because that told me that not only could I heal my body from the inside out through very deliberate, I used very specific supplements to make things right. I was eating in a very specific way to really use food to heal my body. And it made all the difference. Yeah. And that we have evidence of that with Violet, who's now 2 years old.
So I'm kind of curious, because you talk about seeing a PCOS dietitian. Like, where did she come from? I mean, it doesn't sound like a medical doctor would referred you to her.
No, she's in New Zealand. She's across the ocean. So I used to work where I used to work. My boss had found this protocol online. And so I did some research, and I started going through the protocol. And she's still very active in the PCOS community. I did virtual, obviously, meetings with her. But yeah, she was a big part of of the healing that I went through. And now I see a dietitian who specializes in PCOS and bariatrics. Nice. So I found the right fit, right, for me. And she's in the Seattle area. But she has a very specific niche. Like, she has a very specific focus, and that's what I needed. I needed somebody who understood every aspect of what I was going through and could help give me the tools to be successful. And her approach is something that is very sustainable for me moving forward.
So to me, what it sounds like, if your doctor isn't giving you maybe the information that you need or want, get online, search, ask questions, because there's always a different option. There's always another option.
There is. And, you have to be careful, because there's a lot of voices out there that are going to tell you they know what's best. Make sure that they are, the dietitians that I've seen are registered dietitians. They've gone to school for years and years and years, and they have the knowledge base and the medical background to say that, to show that what they're doing. And look at the proofs in the pudding. Like, what are the results that they're seeing? Talk to different, see about their testimonials, see what other patients have gone through to get to where they are. I think that's so important. Do your research. You have to be the advocate for you and your health. Your doctors are there for a very specific reason. Like, I value the medical profession a great deal. There's miracles in medicine, right? But there's sometimes things that we encounter in our lives that can't be explained medically. Yeah. And there's things that we go through in our bodies internally that can't be seen. And so when you learn to advocate for yourself, go to the right sources for knowledge and experience, you will find the right tools to succeed. And you, for me, that is what made all the difference. I found the right tools for my toolbox.
I like that. I like that. Find the tools for your toolbox. Find the right tools for your toolbox. I like that one. I'm going to take that one too. So given what you knew then and what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently on your health journey?
No, I can't say that for sure. I think because I think we've come so far. And I think we have, medically speaking, and, the science behind all of these things, it's come so far. There's so many different things that are factors. I do think that, food is fuel, but it's also backed by science. And I think there's so many aspects of the food that we eat that can't be explained. Have you ever heard the phrase, eat real butter because your body doesn't know how to digest margarine? Yeah. Or, like all these chemicals and things that are in our foods. I think that you have to do what's best for you, but you go to the source. If you're eating foods that don't have a label, you're going to be way better off, right?
Agreed. And sometimes it's overwhelming to even go to the store and just see so many options. I'm like, I'll just shop online.
Right.
Sometimes that's just what I do because it's overwhelming.
Right. It
So,
is.
yeah, for sure. So, thinking back to that 13-year-old Jessica, what would you say to her?
I would say you're beautiful, that you are doing a great job, that you are a light to the people around you. And, you know, how you look on the outside is not the sum whole of you. And I think that when there's others around you that can point that out and help you see it, it will change your life. And so just to keep going and to, find ways to be happy, because really, I talk about all of these things, but it truly does make me happy to move my body and to fuel my body and to love my body. And so if that's what brings you joy, do it. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. It's your journey.
It's your journey. It is your journey. And I love that. So what's next for Jessica?
Well, I continue to look for physical challenges. I like challenging my body. And so I'm working with one of my mentors at the gym, Pure Energy Fitness, which is in Saginaw. I absolutely love. Roy and Rita Bates are the owners over there. And Rita and Roy both, I do some personal training with Roy, and I do, Rita is one of my mentors. And she's helping me go through the ACE certification so that I can become a fitness instructor. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Not something I would have ever said I would want to do, but
wow.
It truly does bring me joy.
Yes.
And then I really want to get into rowing. I know it's kind of a random thing, but it's a very specific goal because I had wanted to try it years ago and was told that I was too heavy for the boat. So learning to row at a lower weight is something that I want to try.
Oh, congrats. That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of arm work, and
Yes.
I would be
But being out on the
extremely
water, I don't know.
true.
I love kayaking, and it just seems like a fun thing to try. So
Yes. Well, I'm excited for your journey.
thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of this show, this episode, and sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you.